What's good? It's Woog. This weekend is pretty stacked with boxing action. We've got the Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora fight card, which is it's a solid card. A few pretty damn good fights. We also have the Gulamarian versus Zurdo Ramirez title fight at cruiserweight. That's going to be on DAZN. Sunday, it's got Frazier Clark versus Fabio Wardley. That's on Sunday. But Friday's got Oscar Valdez versus Liam Wilson. And this fight card on Friday is actually pretty sneaky good. We've got a battle for undisputed between Senicia Estrada and Yokasta Valle. They've been kind of targeting each other, for some time. They've had each other in their crosshairs. That's in the strawweight division. This fight card also features Raymond Murataya, who just stopped Nakatila. It also features the pretty promising, young, untested, but, impressive every time I see him, heavyweight Richard Torres Jr. He's going to be on the card. Fernando Vargas' son, Emiliano Vargas. He's been looking pretty ferocious, and he's going to be on the fight card. But the main event is Oscar Valdez, 31 wins and 2 losses, taking on Liam Wilson, 13 wins and 2 losses. The betting odds kind of surprised me on this one. Oscar Valdez is a -320, a slightly greater than 3-1 favorite. Liam Wilson is a +300, so he's a 3-1 underdog. Liam Wilson, you might remember, had a very spirited and competitive fight with Emmanuel Navarrete. Go rewatch that one. I've watched that one a couple of times, and I would say 3 times in total. And the second and third time that I watched it, I was more and more reminded how good of a fight that was. When people were talking about the best fights of 2023, many were mentioning Emmanuel Navarrete's fight with Oscar Valdez, but they forgot about Emmanuel Navarrete's fight against Liam Wilson, which for a moment looked like it was shaping up to be the upset of the year, when Liam Wilson not only knocked down Navarrete in the 3rd or 4th round, which I did remember that part, but I didn't remember as much how badly Liam Wilson hurt Navarrete towards the end of, it was either the 7th or 8th round. Towards the end of that round, Liam Wilson badly hurt Navarrete again. This was a really good fight, and ever since Navarrete got dropped badly in the 4th round, he was given way too much time to recover. He looked to his corner, at the same time spit his mouthpiece out, made it kind of look like an accident. The ref, as he was counting Navarrete, who got knocked down in such a way that he did a whole roll, his body tumbled over when he, dropped. It was a pretty bad knockdown. I thought he was in all types of trouble. He spit the mouthpiece out. The ref picks it up, and Navarrete starts, trying to adjust it and just kind of messing with the mouthpiece with his glove, almost like he can't really get it in. It was all buying him time. That impressed me even more about Navarrete. The fact that in that moment of crisis, he had the wherewithal to kind of play the system and get an extra 10 seconds to recover. And again, this ended up being a really good fight, and Liam Wilson got stopped in the 9th round. And it was because Navarrete, ever since getting knocked down the first time, just started going all full Navarrete. He wasn't full Navarrete before he got knocked down. He looked kind of sluggish. He looked a little bit like he did in the early rounds against Eduardo Baez. That was Navarrete's final fight at featherweight, where he ended up scoring a knockout to the body against Baez, but Baez was winning those early rounds and Navarrete was looking sluggish. So again, one of the fights of the year. And I know that people remember the knockdown, but in its totality, it was a pretty competitive and fun fight, at least for us fans. Probably not so much for Navarrete and Liam Wilson, but that's pretty much what we know Liam Wilson for. And he's had 2 fights since, that he won both by unanimous decision. So we know that he had a good performance against Navarrete. We still don't know how good Liam Wilson is. We know that he's been training with Barry Hunter for some time. He left Australia to come to DC to train with that team, the Headbangers, but we haven't seen him fight another top opponent besides Navarrete. Even in his last fight against Jackson, England, it ended up being a 6 rounds to 4 scorecard on 2 of the 3 judges' cards. Liam Wilson had difficulty against Jackson England. And the next best guy I would say Liam Wilson has fought is probably Joe Noine. Joe Noine actually knocked Liam Wilson out in the 5th round when they first fought. Liam Wilson knocked Noine out in the 2nd round in their immediate rematch. So again, it's just a lot we don't know about Liam Wilson. We know a good amount about Oscar Valdez. In fact, it's one of those cases where he seemingly went from being kind of a beloved fighter for a moment. Like when he beat Miguel Berchelt, Valdez was a big undercard. I mean, he had been a featherweight champ before that, but he was coming up in weight, had a couple of fights. He, stopped Jason Valdez, but he wasn't on paper. He wasn't supposed to win that fight against Miguel Berchelt. And he pulled off kind of one of the upsets of the year. Like he was like a 3-1 underdog, or maybe even a little bit more, but it was one of the knockouts of the year. And this was like a big year for Eddie Reynoso too. So, I mean, his team at that time was kind of clicking on all cylinders. Oscar Valdez scored a brilliant knockout against Miguel Berchelt, super vicious. But then as quickly as he became kind of beloved, he became almost a boxing pariah after testing positive for PEDs going into his very next fight against Robson Conceição. And the WBC not only let Oscar Valdez keep his belt, they let him proceed with the fight. It was a little bit maddening when you see the lack of consistency on how the rules are applied. It was a fight in Arizona, so the Athletic State Commission chose to let it go. And so the fight took place. Robson Conceição was winning maybe the first 4 to 5 rounds. Oscar Valdez started to turn it around, never really hit Conceição with most of his best stuff, but Conceição stopped throwing enough punches to really make a claim and have a case for winning the round. Like Conceição was looking very reflexive and was catching Oscar Valdez coming in. Like he looked very snappy with his punches, looked very sharp. But then Valdez won many of the rounds in the second half of the fight, ended up winning a pretty controversial, I would say disputed, unanimous decision. So at that point, a lot of the public had really soured on Oscar Valdez. And then he came back and he fought Shakur Stevenson for a title unification fight. Stevenson was bringing in the WBO belt and Valdez was bringing in the WBC belt. Shakur Stevenson won a pretty wide decision there. It was a unanimous decision. Shakur Stevenson, that's probably one of his 2 or 3 best performances and biggest wins of Stevenson's young career. But yeah, he made Oscar Valdez look kind of second rate. Valdez had difficulty coming in. Stevenson would kind of make him pay every time he did come in. Stevenson kept him on the outside, and he made Valdez look very limited, pretty short, and pretty short-armed. Like Valdez really didn't have answers for Shakur Stevenson. So Valdez lost his title, had a fight against Adam Lopez, Blue Nose. He won that one via unanimous decision, but it looked like, to me, Lopez was moving a lot in that fight. So it looked like Valdez was kind of chasing him a bit. And the fight kind of grew increasingly boring when it became clear that Adam Lopez was going to be able to kind of cruise to a decision loss, and Valdez wasn't going to really be able to catch up to him and hit him with his best stuff. Like, it appears to me that Valdez is at his best when the guy is coming at him. Like, that's at least when he's at his most dangerous. This was actually the second time Valdez had fought Adam Lopez. They fought back in 2019. Valdez stopped Blue Nose in that fight after getting dropped. But then in the rematch, again, 6 years later, he ended up winning a unanimous decision. And then he fights Emmanuel Navarrete in a very exciting and entertaining fight where Navarrete just once again showed that he's got the ability to kick it into a gear that we just don't see 90-something% of fighters being able to hit, just in terms of volume, tenacity, running all the red lights and somehow making it work out for you, being able to stay balanced footwork wise when you're doing a whole bunch of unconventional, ill-advised things. Navarrete's simply kind of a freak of nature. Like, even proportionally, like he's got a 72-inch reach, the same reach as Errol Spence. It's crazy to think that once upon a time he was at 122, wreaking havoc on a then champ Isaac Dogboe in back-to-back fights. And then he went to 126 and then 130. Now he's going to 135, which is the reason why this fight between Valdez and Liam Wilson will actually be for a vacant interim title. They're assuming that Emmanuel Navarrete, the WBO champ, is going to be going up and staying up, right? He's about to fight Dennis Berinchyk for the vacant lightweight title. So Navarrete is actually trying to become a 4-division champ. Never a unified champ, which is a little bit interesting, but yeah, 4-division champ. And the WBO, I think, is assuming that Navarrete is not going to come back to super featherweight. So whoever wins this between Valdez and Liam Wilson will probably, more likely than not, be elevated at some point from interim champ to actual champ. So this is Oscar Valdez's kind of his shot at redemption, like to become a 2-time super featherweight champ, as well as being a former featherweight champ. But yeah, Navarrete's performance against Valdez was pretty unreal. Like, it looked like he hurt his hand in like the middle rounds, he being Navarrete, and then he would come out the next round and throw like 130 punches, literally. It was pretty bananas if you were watching that one. And Valdez was just drowning in activity. I mean, he was keeping it spirited. To say that it was competitive, I guess to a degree, but not really. Like, Navarrete was hitting Valdez with, like, just look at Valdez's face after that fight and look at how remarkably untouched Navarrete appeared, because he did take some leather, but his face didn't show any of it at the end of the fight. Valdez's face showed just about all of it in that fight. That almost looked like one of those, hey man, you want to think about retirement type of beatdowns, but here we are with Valdez fighting Liam Wilson for a vacant interim super featherweight WBO title. So the way I am thinking about this, because I've been all over the place with who I think is going to win this one and how. Valdez, is he getting caught at the right time of his career for Liam Wilson to be facing him? Valdez is 33, but he's been in some straight up dog fights. Like, you might remember the Scott Quigg fight from back in 2018. Valdez had been in some tough fights. I mean, he got outclassed and, he got hands put on him by Shakur Stevenson. And earlier in Valdez's career, he'd been in some tough fights, and especially that fight against Navarrete in his very latest fight. So that's a tough loss to be bouncing back from and fighting a young, encouraged, emboldened Liam Wilson, who again has had a couple of fights since that loss to Navarrete. So I think that Liam Wilson is pretty emboldened at this point. And the last guy that he fought, Jackson England, I mean, don't sleep on him. That was a pretty competitive, close fight. Jackson England, I don't think that we've heard the last of him. So I think that Liam Wilson, especially if he's still working with Barry Hunter for this fight, he's being well schooled, and you could see that in his fight against Navarrete. Like, he was, he's got a nice hook when he's mid-exchange. I mean, do you want to be trading hooks with Oscar Valdez, though? That's another question. He's got a nice straight right hand, and he could throw it as a lead and as a counter. He just looks pretty poised in there. Like, even when he did get stopped by Navarrete, but aside from his lack of wherewithal to clinch, he should have clinched in certain instances when he was really getting beaten down towards the end of the fight with Navarrete, but he's pretty poised. And again, he's just very determined. Like, he seems hell-bent. It's a promise that he made to his, father, who I believe passed away early in Liam Wilson's life. He vowed to become champion. So he's a very motivated guy. But Oscar Valdez is also motivated to recapture glory. So I think that this is going to be a tough fight, man. Like, I was thinking, if they start trading hooks, like if this fight goes on for a few rounds and then, Liam Wilson gets hit by one and, he's keeping Oscar Valdez kind of on the outside, Liam Wilson's going to be a lot taller than Oscar Valdez. Liam Wilson is 5'9.5". Oscar Valdez is somewhere between like 5'5" and 5'6". There's also like an approximately 4-inch reach advantage for Liam Wilson. So it's going to be on Oscar Valdez to close the gap. I'm imagining that Valdez is going to try to go to the body. Going to the body was very effective for Navarrete in slowing down and stopping Liam Wilson. And it was effective for Liam Wilson dropping Navarrete as well. He kind of went to the body, then he would start going up top. He was mixing it up. So it's going to be on Oscar Valdez to get on the inside and be able to throw some of his best stuff. Valdez has two-fisted power. He can hurt you with that straight right, and he can especially blast you with that left hook. I'm just thinking that I think that I trust Valdez's chin a bit more than I do Liam Wilson's if this does turn into a firefight. And even if Liam Wilson has success in the early rounds, kind of keeping Valdez on the outside, outboxing him, I could see Valdez catching him in the middle rounds. And as they start getting into some of the more ferocious exchanges, I could see Valdez dropping or hurting Liam Wilson. I could also see Liam Wilson clipping Valdez coming in, maybe even with a left hook of his own. I could see him dropping Oscar Valdez, but the more I'm thinking about this one, I think that Valdez is going to start walking Liam Wilson down at a point, and I think Liam Wilson will be forced to fight the guy. Not that he can't win in that fashion, and again, Oscar Valdez is 33, but I think he's an old 33, so I wouldn't be surprised if Liam Wilson wins, like via decision probably. But I also think that Valdez is going to start making it more of a fight than a boxing affair, and Valdez just has a lot of zip on his punches. No, he wasn't able to stop Adam Lopez, Blue Nose. No, he wasn't able to deter Emmanuel Navarrete. No, he wasn't able to get to Shakur Stevenson. No, he wasn't able to stop or to, demonstratively beat Robson Conceição. But I still do think that he's got some thunder in his gloves. I just think that, it's a fight by fight, case by case thing where no, Valdez hasn't scored a knockout since the fight against Miguel Berchelt. But I think that he has a decent chance at scoring one here. I just think that there's a greater chance that even if Valdez starts getting to Liam Wilson's got enough craft. I think he's got enough boxing acumen, and I think he's got enough heat of his own to make this a competitive enough fight to where he goes the 12-round distance. And believe me, I was this close to going with Liam Wilson pulling off a decision upset. And again, I'm surprised at the betting odds. Like, I get that Oscar Valdez has the name and he's a two-time former champion, but he is 33 and he's coming off that beatdown at the hands of Navarrete. I just think that there's more momentum going Liam Wilson's way, but I still respect Oscar Valdez's sharp punching ability and his boxing. He's not a great boxer, but he's a pretty good boxer, and he just has a ton of experience at the upper echelon level. I think that Liam Wilson's got enough heat to get Oscar Valdez's respect, but I think Oscar Valdez is going to be able to, again, increasingly walk him down, find opportunities to throw big shots, catch Liam Wilson with some of those, and be able to score more rounds at the end of the day, more rounds out of the 12 than Liam Wilson. So I'm going to go with Oscar Valdez, but I think Liam Wilson is going to do enough to hang on, go the distance. I could even see Liam Wilson having enough success in the early rounds to where even if Valdez rallies late and starts winning more of those rounds, that to us, the viewers, it might look like a 7-5 fight that can go either way. I just think that even if that's the case, that Oscar Valdez is probably going to get the slightly more favorable judging. So I think Valdez is going to win, but I don't think it's going to be like 9-3. I think it's going to be like 8-4, 7-5, maybe even a split decision. So I'm going to go with Valdez winning a close and competitive, but not so clear decision. I think there might be some dispute in this one, but I'm going to go with Valdez earning the decision win against Liam Wilson in a fight where it might even further build Liam Wilson's stock and reputation. I know it would be tough to have two images of Liam Wilson getting stopped. By that point, you're thinking, okay, I've pretty much seen this guy's ceiling, but I think that this is going to be it's going to be a competitive fight that's going to involve some fireworks. But I'm going with Oscar Valdez to score a close decision win. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comments. Who do you have winning and how? And do you think Navarrete, the current full champ, is going to come back to 130? Or do you think he's going to have enough success in his first fight at 135, earn a new belt, and pretty much stay at 135 until somebody knocks him off? And do you think that the winner of Valdez versus Liam Wilson has a chance at fighting a title unification fight? Given the promotional politics, it would probably be O'Shaquie Foster, since Foster is now on Top Rank. It seems like that would be an easy one to make, and maybe that's why the WBO is putting this one up for grabs as an interim title fight, so they could pivot from Valdez versus Wilson to the winner of that fight maybe fighting O'Shaquie Foster in a title unification fight. And then, on the DAZN side of things, they've got Joe Cordina and Raymond Ford. So yeah, let me know your thoughts about the landscape at 130 and who you think's gonna win this fight in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are into the fight talk. I'm Woog. Thanks for tuning in.